The peace treaty required no advanced weapons, so humans brought crossbows, longbows, and trebuchets. The council chambers were enormous, stretching high into the sky, with walls of transparent crystal that showed the swirling stars outside. Every known species in the galaxy was represented there, from the winged ones of Talar to the deep-sea dwellers of Orvin. Humans had arrived last, quietly, their ships small and unassuming compared to the glittering war vessels of the aliens. John Carter, a human officer of average build but sharp mind, walked down the ramp of the human shuttle. Beside him, Maria Lopez, an engineer with quick hands and a steady voice, carried crates of equipment. Their eyes scanned the crowded chamber, noting the curious glances from alien delegates. The humans' arrival caused a stir. Most of the alien races had expected humans to bring advanced energy rifles, laser cannons, or at least ships bristling with some secret technology. Instead, John and Maria walked in carrying nothing more dangerous than wooden crates and long bundles of rope. Whispers spread across the council floor. The winged ones tilted their heads in confusion. The Orvanese squirmed, their fins trembling as they stared. The humans looked unarmed and ordinary, but John felt calm. He knew that appearances often misled those who judged quickly. "They bring no advanced weapons," one alien muttered in its harsh, clicking language. Another, a tall, pale species with silver eyes, laughed softly. "Surely they misunderstand the treaty. They cannot hope to survive without technology." John ignored them, keeping his attention on the task ahead. The peace treaty required every species to patrol contested regions using only simple tools. No energy weapons, no star destroyers, no advanced explosives. Humans had read the treaty carefully. They knew how to work within it. The aliens had assumed humans would be at a disadvantage. As the session began, John and Maria set up their equipment quietly in a corner. John carefully unpacked what looked like wooden frames and bundles of string. He held a longbow in his hands, testing its weight. Maria opened a crate to reveal crossbows, arrows, and materials for constructing siege weapons like trebuchets. The aliens nearby stared openly, some with amusement, some with disbelief. One of the council's officers, a four-armed creature named Varkle, leaned over to whisper, "Humans think they can fight with sticks and string." John smiled faintly but said nothing. He knew the council would judge him by results, not words. The human delegation had practiced this for years. John had led training exercises in forests, on mountains, and on deserted plains. He had taught his team how to use crossbows for accuracy, longbows for range, and trebuchets for heavy impact. Every member of the human team had memorized maps, angles, wind patterns, and even enemy psychology. The aliens, with all their advanced computers, had ignored the old ways of war. They relied on speed, shields, and energy beams. Humans had not forgotten how to think, to plan, and to use simple tools to deadly effect. During the first session of the treaty patrol, the humans were assigned to a rocky planet with sparse vegetation. John's team landed in small shuttles, careful not to make noise. Maria immediately began assembling a trebuchet from the materials in their crates. The aliens around her continued to mock, pointing tentacles and wings, saying things that sounded like laughter. John, meanwhile, took his team to higher ground and set up longbows. The sun reflected off the rocks, making arrows shimmer as he knocked the first one. The aliens attempted to take the lead, sending scouts and patrols forward. They moved quickly, using hoverboards and gliding packs, confident that humans could not match them. John observed silently, noting their paths, their speed, and where they clustered. Then, as if on signal, he raised his hand. His team fired arrows in coordinated volleys. The aliens had never seen such precision. Arrows struck near their patrols, forcing them to scatter. Some were only grazed, but the demonstration was enough. Whispers ran through the alien ranks. "How can this be?" one asked. They use no energy, yet they dominate the field. Maria's trebuchet began to work as well. With careful adjustments, she launched large stones at distant rocks where alien scouts had taken cover. The rocks struck with thundering impact, sending dust into the air and forcing the aliens to retreat. The Council's observers, floating in hovering pods above the planet, noted every movement. No one could dispute the humans' skill, and yet they remained fully within the treaty's limits. They used no advanced weapons, yet their tactics and discipline turned the battlefield in their favor. John moved silently among his team, giving small gestures and signs. They were like dancers in a carefully choreographed performance. Emma Brown, a sharpshooter, adjusted her aim and whispered corrections to her teammate Luke Harris, who was handling another longbow. The aliens watched in stunned silence, unable to comprehend that such old-fashioned weapons could be so effective. For them, a weapon's power was in energy output or speed of fire. Humans had shown that planning, patience, and understanding of the terrain could amplify even the simplest tools into deadly force. That evening, as the twin suns of the planet set, the humans gathered around a small campfire. The alien patrols had withdrawn, and John reviewed the day with his team. "We showed them that limits do not mean weakness," he said quietly. Maria nodded, checking the trebuchet's components. "They think they can mock us," she said, "but they will remember this day." Even the youngest human, a cadet named Ryan, felt a pride he had never known. He had carried arrows, adjusted angles, and watched as the aliens, with all their superior technology, had been forced to retreat. It was a small victory, but it set the tone for everything to come. Back at the council, reports from the patrol spread quickly. Alien delegates were divided. Some admitted, reluctantly, that humans had skills beyond expectation. Others continued to mock, claiming luck had favored the humans. John and Maria paid little attention. They knew that respect earned on the battlefield was different from words in a council chamber. Humans had learned to fight without depending on machines, without relying on energy weapons, and without breaking rules. They had learned to think, and thinking often mattered more than technology. Over the following days, the humans continued to patrol different regions of the planet. They encountered more alien groups, some curious, some aggressive. Each time they relied on simple tools, crossbows, longbows, and makeshift trebuchets. Each time they used strategy, terrain, and patience to overcome challenges. The aliens began to take note. Silver-eyed leaders who had laughed now watched with careful interest. The humans' calm, measured approach was not just skill, it was confidence, discipline, and understanding of the rules. The treaty had required limits, but humans had turned limits into strength. At night, John would look at the stars and think about the future. He knew this was only the beginning. The aliens underestimated humans because they judged too quickly, too harshly. Humans did not need flashy technology to survive or to win. They only needed intelligence, patience, and the willingness to adapt. Maria worked beside him, assembling small models of trebuchets and practicing calculations. She smiled when she saw John's relaxed expression. They had come here expecting challenge, and already they had begun to prove themselves. The first week ended with a small demonstration for the council. Humans set up a range, showing how crossbows and longbows could reach extreme distances, how trebuchets could strike targets accurately over hundreds of meters. The alien delegates watched, some reluctantly impressed, others openly skeptical. John and Maria answered questions calmly, never showing arrogance. They explained that the tools were simple, yes, but that humans had practiced with them for years. Skill mattered more than size or energy output. The demonstration concluded with quiet murmurs of respect, even from those who had doubted them most. By the end of the first part of the mission, humans had made their mark. They had arrived unassuming, laughed at, and doubted. Yet through focus, skill, and discipline, They had shown that simple tools could be deadly when used intelligently. The aliens began to reconsider their assumptions about humans. John and Maria shared a quiet smile, knowing the next challenges would be harder, but confident that humans had shown what they were capable of, even without advanced weapons. The stars above were quiet witnesses to a new chapter, one where humans would be remembered not for the machines they built, but for the minds that guided them. The humans had been on the rocky planet for several weeks now, and every day brought new challenges. The alien forces they patrolled with were growing nervous. The raiders, small groups that ignored the treaty whenever they could, had begun to appear more frequently, testing both the aliens and humans. John Carter studied the enemy movements carefully. He noticed that the raiders had begun building small fortifications, using rocks and metal scraps, and were armed with what little was allowed under the treaty. They seemed confident that no one could break their defenses. The aliens, relying on their usual quick attacks, were having trouble adjusting to the human style of fighting. John knew it was time to show the next level of human strategy. Maria Lopez had been working tirelessly in the makeshift camp. She and her small team of humans were building trebuchets, using the local stones and materials they could find. It was tedious work, but they measured angles, tested counterweights, and adjusted the ropes until each trebuchet could throw a heavy stone over 100 meters accurately. The aliens watching could not understand why humans were using such primitive tools. "Why not use energy bombs?" one asked, tilting its head. John smiled slightly and answered, "We work with what we have and we make it count." The aliens only shook their heads, certain that humans were wasting their time. The first engagement began just before sunrise. Clouds of dust hung low over the rocky plains, and the air smelled of metal and stone. A small group of raiders emerged from their camp, moving cautiously. The aliens charged forward, energy blasters replaced by basic melee weapons as required by the treaty. Humans took their positions behind rocks, setting longbows ready and positioning trebuchets at safe distances. John signaled, and Emma Brown, one of the sharpshooters, fired her first arrow. It struck a raider's shield and glanced off, but the precision was enough to make the raider duck and hesitate. One by one, the humans struck their targets, arrows thudding into rocks, hitting weak points in armor and forcing the raiders to split. Maria launched the first stone from the trebuchet. It soared through the sky, spinning and landed squarely on a cluster of makeshift barricades. Wood splintered, metal bent, and raiders scattered in panic. The aliens watching were stunned. They had never seen a siege weapon used effectively in years, much less in this limited state. John moved quickly, giving small hand signals, guiding his team. Each stone, each arrow, and each placement of human forces was calculated. The raiders tried to counterattack, but they were unprepared for coordinated strikes from multiple angles. As the fight continued, John noticed a pattern in the raiders' movements. They relied on repeated tactics, thinking humans would not adapt. John adjusted his team's formation, sending small groups of archers to higher cliffs, while the trebuchets fired from behind cover. The human attacks were relentless but precise. No arrow or stone was wasted. Raiders who thought they could rush forward were met with volleys that forced them back. The humans had turned the battlefield into a chessboard, each move predictable only to themselves. The aliens began to realize that humans were not simply following instructions. They were learning and adapting. When a raider tried to hide behind a rock, a human soldier would adjust the aim of a trebuchet to knock it aside. When a group tried to flank, John's team split into new positions, cutting off escape routes. The aliens had relied on speed and technology to solve such problems in the past. Now, without those advantages, they watched humans solve the puzzle with brains, observation, and patience. Even simple weapons, when used intelligently, were more effective than the aliens' hurried attacks. Midway through the engagement, a raider captain emerged from the fortified camp. It was taller than most humans, covered in dark armor and wielding a large axe. It shouted orders, trying to rally the raiders for a direct assault on the humans. John saw this and decided to use the trebuchets for a more dramatic effect. Maria loaded a massive stone, larger than the others, and adjusted the angle carefully. John signaled, and the stone flew through the air like a comet, crashing near the raider captain. The shockwave knocked the captain off balance and the raiders wavered, confused and scared. The humans pressed their advantage. They moved quickly, not recklessly, striking raiders in small groups with arrows, while the trebuchets continued to bombard enemy defenses. Luke Harris and Emma coordinated, firing from different positions so that raiders could not predict where the next strike would come. John noticed that morale among the alien patrols had also improved. Previously nervous and unsure, the aliens now began following human formations, learning to move with caution and strategy rather than charging blindly. As the battle went on, it became clear that the humans were not just defending, they were teaching. Every move, every adjustment, every aim was an example for the alien soldiers. John had no desire to humiliate anyone, only to complete the mission successfully. Maria smiled as another trebuchet stone landed perfectly, breaking a raider barricade that had seemed impossible to reach. The aliens were beginning to whisper among themselves, no longer mocking but curious, impressed, and perhaps a little afraid of what humans could accomplish even without advanced technology. By late afternoon, the raiders were retreating. Their attempts at ambush had failed, their fortified positions were destroyed, and their morale was broken. The humans pursued carefully, ensuring they followed the treaty rules, never overstepping limits. John coordinated the withdrawal of the human and alien patrols, leaving no one behind. It was a clean, disciplined operation. The aliens now had new respect for humans, and John could see it in their eyes. What had seemed primitive to them was now a demonstration of intelligence, patience, and power. That evening, around the human campfire, John reviewed the day's events with his team. They were tired, muscles sore from hauling stones, climbing cliffs, and aiming bows for hours, but spirits were high. "We didn't just win today," John said quietly. "We showed that rules and limits do not equal weakness. We adapted, we learned, and we executed perfectly." Maria nodded, examining the trebuchet schematics one last time, making notes for the next engagement. "They'll remember this," she said. "Even those who mocked us will not forget what humans can do with simple tools." Ryan, the youngest cadet, looked up at John and asked, "Sir, do you think the aliens will ever take us seriously?" John smiled faintly. "They already are," he said. "They just don't know it yet. Intelligence and preparation will always win over arrogance. Today we proved it." The others nodded, knowing that each day of the mission was preparing them for larger challenges ahead. Humans had arrived underestimated, laughed at, and dismissed, but they were now a force to be reckoned with, even with bows, arrows, and trebuchets. The next morning, scouts reported that the raiders had abandoned their camp entirely. The humans had destroyed their weapons caches without firing any prohibited energy blasts. John led a careful inspection, and Maria took measurements to ensure that the trebuchets could be reused for future operations. Alien commanders joined them, asking questions about angles, weight distribution, and the principles of targeting. John answered without pride, explaining only what was necessary. The aliens were beginning to understand a lesson humans had learned long ago. Even simple things could be powerful when applied with knowledge and discipline. Throughout the following days, humans continued to patrol and practice. They moved with quiet precision, teaching aliens by example, showing how terrain could be used for defense and attack. The raiders had not returned, and alien patrols had gained confidence from observing humans in action. John and Maria discussed their next steps quietly, planning strategies for different terrains, anticipating possible raids, and imagining how they could improve their trebuchets even further. They were not reckless, and they did not underestimate their opponents. Humans had learned patience over centuries of survival, and that patience gave them power in every engagement. One night, under the twin moons of the planet, John looked at the stars and reflected on the mission so far. The humans had arrived quietly, carrying nothing more than wood, rope, and steel. They had faced mockery, disbelief, and underestimation, yet they had turned every disadvantage into strength. Maria joined him, holding a small wooden model of a trebuchet. She smiled at the faint outline of stars reflecting in John's eyes. "We're proving them wrong," she said softly. John nodded. "And we're showing that humans never forget how to think, how to adapt, and how to fight within the rules. That is what makes us dangerous." As the days passed, more alien patrols came to observe the humans, not to mock, but to learn. John had noticed a change in their behavior. They asked questions, tried to copy movements, and considered human strategies seriously. The raiders had been driven away, and the aliens had gained respect for humans' ability to fight intelligently. John felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that this was only the beginning. Humans had made their mark, not with flashy weapons, but with skill, strategy, and the careful use of simple tools. And so the rocky planet became a proving ground, not for machines or energy, but for human minds, teamwork, and patience. The arrows flew, the stones fell from trebuchets, and aliens began to understand that humans, even within the strict limits of the treaty, were a force that could not be ignored. John and Maria continued their work, preparing for the next engagement, knowing that every victory, every lesson, and every demonstration of skill brought them closer to winning not just battles, but the respect of the entire galaxy. The humans had become a quiet force on the rocky planet. The alien patrols had stopped mocking them and instead followed their lead. The raiders who had once threatened the region were gone, but John Carter knew this was not the end. Other alien groups, seeing the humans' effectiveness, might attempt to challenge them next. Every day was a test of skill, patience, and strategy. The humans did not rush. They prepared, observed, and adapted. John and Maria had learned that the best victories were not won with speed or strength alone, but with careful planning and intelligence. Early one morning, scouts reported a larger raider force moving toward the patrol area. This group was bigger than any the humans had faced so far, carrying more materials and constructing larger fortifications. The aliens around John panicked slightly, unsure how to respond. Energy weapons were forbidden under the treaty, and most alien tactics depended on technology. John calmly studied the reports, tracing the raiders' path and noting where they might be vulnerable. He called a meeting with his team and the alien leaders, explaining his plan clearly and simply. "We will use the terrain," John said, pointing to hills, rocks, and cliffs. "We will place trebuchets where they can hit without being seen. Archers will cover the flanks, and we will force them to move into positions we choose. We do not break the treaty, but we use strategy." The aliens listened carefully. Some nodded in understanding, while others were hesitant, still doubting the humans' old-fashioned approach. Maria checked the trebuchets one last time, tightening ropes and adjusting angles. "We have the range," she said quietly. "We only need patience." The humans and aliens moved into position as the sun rose, casting long shadows across the rocky plains. John's team climbed cliffs, set up firing lines, and concealed the trebuchets behind natural barriers. Alien soldiers, guided by human experience, followed quietly, learning the rhythm of observation, patience, and timing. When the raiders appeared, confident and shouting, they found themselves trapped in a landscape carefully chosen by humans. John's voice was calm as he signaled the first volley. Arrows flew, striking shields, hitting legs, and forcing raiders to take cover. Maria launched the first trebuchet stones, sending them crashing into barricades and piles of metal. Dust and debris filled the air, and the raiders were confused, unsure where the next attack would come from. Human soldiers moved quietly from cover to cover, guiding alien troops, showing them how to use small obstacles to slow the enemy. The raiders, thinking they had superiority in numbers, were caught off guard. Their formations broke as they tried to find safe positions, only to be met with more arrows and carefully aimed stones. John observed carefully, adjusting positions and coordinating attacks. Emma Brown fired from a higher cliff, covering a group of alien soldiers advancing forward. Luke Harris fired his longbow with precision, hitting targets the aliens had overlooked. Each human movement was deliberate, each shot measured. The aliens began to see a pattern. They could not act as they normally would. Humans did not rush. Humans did not panic. Humans forced the battle into a game they controlled. Midway through the engagement, a raider commander attempted a direct assault on the trebuchet positions. He was tall, armored, and confident, thinking that humans would not be able to defend against a frontal attack. John anticipated this. He signaled to Maria, who adjusted the counterweight of a trebuchet. The massive stone launched perfectly, landing near the commander's path. The shock and dust forced him to halt, while human soldiers fired arrows at vulnerable spots in his armor. The commander stumbled back, injured but alive, and the raiders began to falter. The battle continued for hours. The humans coordinated each movement, guiding alien soldiers, showing them how to cover each other, and teaching patience in attack. Even when the raiders tried to regroup and counterattack, they were met with predictable, disciplined defenses. Every trebuchet launch, every arrow, and every calculated movement pushed them back. John noticed the aliens were learning. They whispered among themselves, mimicking human strategies, moving with more caution, and beginning to understand that skill mattered more than raw strength or numbers. As the sun began to set, the raiders' morale collapsed. Their fortifications were destroyed, their lines broken, and their forces exhausted. Humans continued their measured advance, never overextending, never breaking the treaty. They used observation, planning, and coordination to win the battle. Alien leaders approached John, asking questions about positioning, timing, and the calculations behind trebuchet launches. John answered quietly, showing no arrogance, only teaching what he knew. It was a lesson in discipline and intelligence that went beyond the battlefield. After the raiders finally retreated, John gathered his team and the alien leaders. He praised the human team for their focus and patience, and highlighted the progress of the aliens who had learned to adapt. Maria checked each trebuchet, noting minor adjustments that could improve future accuracy. "They underestimated us," she said, "but they are learning. We need to be ready for anyone who doubts humans again." John nodded. "We've done more than win a battle. We've shown that intelligence and preparation beat arrogance and blind force." That night under the stars, John walked with Emma and Luke through the camp. The fires burned softly, and the exhausted humans cleaned equipment, repaired bows, and inspected trebuchets. "Do you think the aliens will finally respect humans now?" Luke asked. John shook his head slowly. "Respect is not given after one victory. It is earned through consistency. Today we proved we can follow rules and still be effective. That is more powerful than anything else." Emma nodded, understanding. The humans had arrived underestimated, laughed at, and dismissed, but each day they demonstrated skill and discipline, building a reputation that would last. Over the next few days, humans continued to patrol. They observed alien forces, anticipating possible raids, and adjusted their positions as needed. John taught alien leaders how to use terrain, timing, and small coordinated attacks to maximize effectiveness. Maria built additional trebuchets, each one stronger and more precise than the last. Human soldiers drilled with bows and coordinated with alien units, improving every day. It was not just about defeating enemies. It was about teaching others that patience, observation, and strategy could overcome strength or numbers. One afternoon, a group of alien delegates arrived to observe a training exercise. They had come with doubt, expecting humans to struggle with basic tools. Instead, they watched humans fire arrows with deadly precision, adjust trebuchet launches with careful calculations, and guide alien units through simulated raids. Whispers ran through the delegates. Some shook their heads in disbelief, while others quietly noted techniques to apply in future operations. John observed quietly, allowing humans to demonstrate skill without words. Actions, he knew, were always louder than speech. As the sun set, John and Maria sat together on a cliff overlooking the rocky plains. The humans had achieved what they came for, but John knew the mission was far from over. "They still don't fully understand us," he said quietly. "They see our weapons as simple, but they don't see the skill behind them. Patience, strategy, adaptation, that is what makes humans dangerous." Maria nodded. "And they are learning, even if slowly. Every day they see something new. They will not underestimate us again." John smiled faintly. The humans had turned a simple limitation, the treaty, into a demonstration of human intelligence, teaching the galaxy that rules did not mean weakness. Throughout the rocky planet, the humans had become a model of precision, discipline, and intelligence. Arrows flew accurately, stones from trebuchets struck perfectly, and alien soldiers learned to move with patience and coordination. John and Maria worked tirelessly to maintain equipment, train soldiers, and plan every engagement. Each day strengthened humans' reputation, showing that skill, thought, and strategy could overcome technology or arrogance. And so the humans continued, unassuming yet powerful, showing the galaxy that even under strict limitations, intelligence and preparation could turn the tide. The raiders were defeated, alien forces began to learn from humans, and John and Maria knew that their mission was not just about winning battles. It was about proving that humans could achieve more than anyone expected, even without advanced weapons. The stars above watched silently as humans, with bows, crossbows, and trebuchets, reshaped the understanding of strength and respect across the galaxy. The humans had been on the rocky planet for weeks, and their reputation had grown beyond expectation. Alien patrols no longer mocked them, and even the most skeptical commanders watched carefully whenever John Carter and Maria Lopez led a training or patrol. The raiders had been driven away, their fortifications destroyed, and morale broken. Yet John knew this was only part of the larger mission. The galaxy still underestimated humans, and he wanted to ensure that they left no doubt about human skill, discipline, and intelligence. Early one morning, scouts reported a fleet of alien ships moving toward the planet. They were not large warships, but a force strong enough to test both humans and allied alien patrols. John called his team together, along with the alien commanders who had been learning from the humans. "We are not reckless," he said. "We will not break the treaty. We will fight within the rules, and we will show them that intelligence beats numbers." Maria checked the trebuchets one last time, adjusting angles, ropes, and counterweights. The humans moved efficiently, calmly, and with quiet determination, knowing that preparation was as important as the fight itself. As the alien ships landed, small groups of soldiers began to disembark. They moved confidently, assuming humans would be unprepared or weak. John observed their formations, noting their strengths and weaknesses. Emma Brown and Luke Harris set up firing lines on the cliffs, while Maria prepared trebuchets on hidden ridges. Human archers took positions with careful precision, aiming at choke points where enemy troops might advance. John signaled the first volley, and arrows flew silently but deadly through the early morning air. The aliens were caught off guard. They expected humans to flee, panic, or surrender, but instead, they found themselves facing coordinated, disciplined defense. Trebuchet stones crashed into barricades, scattering enemy troops and slowing their advance. Human soldiers moved with purpose, guiding alien allies into positions that maximized the effect of every strike. The attackers hesitated, unsure how to proceed against tactics they could not predict and did not understand. Midway through the engagement, a large group of alien troops tried to flank the human positions. John quickly signaled Emma and Luke to adjust their aim, while Maria launched a massive stone from a trebuchet, striking near the flank and forcing the attackers to retreat. The humans did not celebrate or rush forward. They remained calm, observing the enemy, anticipating the next move. Alien commanders watched closely, learning patience and strategy in real time. Every move was deliberate, every strike calculated, and every human decision showed the difference between intelligence and brute force. The battle continued for hours. The alien attackers tried repeatedly to break human lines, but each attempt failed. Trebuchets destroyed barricades and supply caches, while arrows struck with precision. John coordinated movements with quiet gestures, directing human and alien units like a conductor leading a symphony. Each success reinforced a lesson. Even under strict limitations, humans could turn simple tools into decisive advantages. The aliens watching began to understand that what they had thought of as primitive was, in the hands of humans, devastatingly effective. As the sun climbed higher, the alien attackers grew frustrated. Their numbers were larger, but their coordination was poor. They did not anticipate human strategy or the ability to adapt mid-battle. John noticed a pattern in their movements and directed his team to exploit it. Small groups of human archers moved silently to higher ground, creating crossfire zones, while trebuchets continued to hammer the enemy from behind cover. The alien attackers were forced into positions of disadvantage repeatedly, unable to predict the next strike or defend against the precision attacks. Maria adjusted the trebuchet for a long-range shot, aiming at a distant supply cache. The massive stone flew across the plains, striking perfectly and exploding into debris. Alien attackers who had thought themselves safe were forced to retreat. John noticed alien commanders whispering among themselves, taking notes, and even mimicking human tactics. For the first time, humans were not only defeating enemies, they were teaching them. Even those who came to fight against humans were learning from the display of intelligence, discipline, and strategy. As the afternoon wore on, the alien attackers' morale broke completely. They had suffered losses, failed repeatedly, and could not predict or counter human strategy. John's team maintained discipline, never overextending, never breaking treaty rules. Emma and Luke continued to fire with precision, while Maria's trebuchets demolished key positions. Human and allied alien soldiers moved as a unit, coordinated and confident. The attackers finally began to retreat in disarray, their formation shattered and their confidence broken. John signaled a halt to the pursuit. There was no need to chase them further. The attackers were defeated, humiliated by humans and their allies. The alien commanders approached John and Maria, quietly expressing admiration and surprise. "You did not just win," one said. "You showed us how to fight without relying on machines or energy. Your strategy, patience, and skill, it is remarkable." John nodded quietly. He did not seek praise. "We fight within the rules," he said. "We adapt, we observe, and we execute carefully. That is how humans succeed." That evening, around the campfire, the human team reflected on the battle. Muscles were sore, but spirits were high. Ryan, the young cadet, looked at John and asked, "Sir, do you think anyone will ever underestimate humans again?" John smiled faintly. "Some will try," he said, "but they will learn quickly. Humans do not need advanced weapons to succeed. We use intelligence, patience, and discipline. That is enough to turn any challenge in our favor." Maria nodded, checking her notes and preparing for the next deployment. The humans had arrived underestimated, mocked, and dismissed, but each day of careful preparation and precise action had built a reputation that even aliens could not ignore. Over the following days, humans continued to patrol and teach. Alien soldiers followed their example, learning strategy, timing, and the use of terrain. John and Maria refined their trebuchets, increasing accuracy and efficiency. Archers practiced longer ranges, coordinating with alien units. Each exercise, each patrol reinforced lessons in patience, discipline, and intelligence. The humans' presence was no longer questioned. It was respected, even quietly feared by those who had once doubted them. One afternoon, a council representative arrived to observe the humans' operations. They came with skepticism, expecting humans to struggle with primitive tools. Instead, they witnessed a demonstration of skill and intelligence. Trebuchets striking targets with perfect precision, arrows hitting marks that seemed impossible, and human and alien units moving with coordination and discipline. The representative watched quietly, taking notes, clearly impressed. John allowed the humans to demonstrate without words, knowing that actions spoke louder than explanations. That night, under the twin moons of the rocky planet, John walked with Maria along a ridge overlooking the plains. The humans' campfires flickered below, and distant trebuchets rested in the shadows, ready for the next engagement. "We've done more than fight battles," Maria said softly. "We've shown the galaxy what humans can do without advanced weapons." John nodded. "And they are learning. Even those who doubted us now watch carefully. Respect comes from results, not appearances. And humans always deliver results." The final days on the planet passed without further attacks, but humans continued to patrol and teach. Alien commanders had begun to integrate human strategies into their own operations. John and Maria oversaw training, inspected equipment, and prepared contingency plans for any new threats. Human soldiers drilled with bows and coordinated with alien allies, reinforcing lessons of patience, observation, and strategy. Each day strengthened the human's reputation, showing that intelligence and discipline could overcome numbers, arrogance, or superior technology. When the mission finally concluded, the human delegation gathered for a debrief with the council. Alien leaders spoke quietly, praising humans for their skill, strategy, and ability to fight within the treaty rules while achieving decisive victories. "We underestimated you," one said. "You proved that even without advanced weapons, humans are a force to be reckoned with." John and Maria remained calm, listening without pride. The recognition was welcome, but they knew that the real victory was in the lessons taught and the respect earned. As the human team prepared to depart, John looked back at the rocky plains one last time. The trebuchets stood silent, arrows rested in quivers, and the alien soldiers moved with confidence. Humans had arrived underestimated, mocked, and dismissed. They had faced challenges, driven away raiders, taught alien allies, and shown that even the simplest tools, when used with intelligence and discipline, could win battles and earn respect. Maria joined him, holding a small wooden model of a trebuchet. She smiled quietly. "We've proven what humans can do," she said. John nodded. "And they will not forget. Humans fight not just with weapons but with minds. That is our greatest strength." As the human shuttles lifted from the rocky planet, the stars stretched endlessly above. Humans had left a mark not through advanced machines, but through intelligence, preparation, and courage. The galaxy had learned, finally, that humans were not to be underestimated. Even as the ships disappeared into the void, John, Maria, and their team felt the quiet satisfaction of a mission completed. They had won not just battles, but understanding. The aliens would remember, the raiders would fear, and humans had shown that rules did not limit strength, they revealed it. And so, in the vastness of space, the simple tools of humans, crossbows, longbows, and trebuchets, had rewritten expectations, proving that intelligence, patience, and discipline could triumph over arrogance, numbers, and even advanced technology. The humans had arrived as underdogs, laughed at and doubted. They left as teachers, warriors, and a force that the galaxy could no longer ignore. John and Maria knew this was only the beginning, but the lesson was clear. Humans, even without advanced weapons, were unstoppable when they combined skill, strategy, and courage. The stars above bore witness to a truth that no one could deny. Humans were not defined by their technology, but by their minds, their discipline, and their unyielding spirit.